Hi, what is up guys? This is Weasel for PokerVIP.com in association with William Hill Poker. Today I am bringing you the 6+ No Limit Hold'em rules. So firstly, what is 6+ Hold'em? Well, it's basically the same as No Limit Hold'em, but there are a few less cards in the deck. In fact, every single card which is between a 2 and a 5 has been removed from the deck. We only have 6 and higher, which is where the variant gets its name from, 6+ Hold'em. So if you do the maths, that means instead of our regular 52 cards which we have in the deck, we in fact now only have 36 cards in the deck. Aces are still high and low, exactly the same as how they are in Hold'em. So what this means is we can actually make a straight with ace 6, 7, 8, 9. So the 6 follows directly on from the ace. Now, of course, the straight must at least start with the ace. We can't have stuff like king, ace, 6, 7, 8. This is not a straight in 6+ Hold'em. But a 6 functions very much in the same way as a deuce would function in No Limit Hold'em. So it's possible to have ace, 6, 7, 8, 9 as a straight. And it's, of course, still possible to have 10, jack, queen, king, ace as a straight because aces are both high and low in 6+ Hold'em. Because of the different amount of cards in the deck, it makes it more likely to make some hands compared to No Limit Hold'em and less likely to make other types of hands compared to No Limit Hold'em. So to give an example, it's slightly less likely we make something like a flush, but it's actually more likely we make a straight. And as we're going to see, the hand ranks are representative of this. So let's have a quick look at the hand rankings in 6+ Hold'em. Firstly, royal flush and straight flush are still up there at the top, along with quads. Then the next best hand after quads is actually the flush, which now beats a full house in 6+ Hold'em. So don't be one of these guys that makes a full house, gets all the money in on the river, and then wonders exactly how we ended up getting stacked by a flush. There are going to be players doing this since the variant is very new. Similar to how when people first played Pot Limit Omaha, for example, they make a flush with one of their whole cards. They think they have the ace high flush, for example, but they actually have to use 2 of their whole cards because it's Pot Limit Omaha. People are going to be doing the same kind of stuff with 6+. So people are going to be making full houses, they're going to be getting all the money in, and they're not going to realize that they lose to a flush in this case. So don't be that guy. So after full house, we have 3 of a kind. And in the normal ranking of things, we expect to see a flush here, or at least a straight. But notice now that 3 of a kind actually beats a straight. So in something like No Limit Hold'em, if we have a straight on a non-paired board where no flush is possible, we obviously have the stone cold nuts. But in 6+ Hold'em, if we have a straight on a non-paired board with no possible flush, we do not have the nuts in that case. Anyone with a pocket pair could have the nuts, because they may be able to make trips with that hand. So it's very important that we don't make some obvious beginner mistakes. And we're going to be able to take money off people who very simply don't know the rules. So the very first step at being able to beat a variant is understanding what all of the rules are. And one factor in that is understanding when we do have the stone cold nuts on a particular texture. So basically, if we have a pocket pair and we've made 3 of a kind, unless there is a possible flush, we basically have the nuts. Obviously, if we have top trips, because if we have bottom set, then we don't have the nuts. But we essentially beat any possible straight. So even if there is a straight available and we have top set, we have the nuts, so long as there is no flush available. After straight, each of the remaining hands follow the same progression as No Limit Hold'em. So we have 2 pair, then we have pair, then we have high card. So let's talk very briefly about some of the differences we can expect to see. Now, one of the most common things that everyone was coming out with after the game originated, by the way, 6+ Hold'em supposedly originated in the live games in Macau and was helped to make popular by Phil Ivey and Tom Dwan, who were big fans of the variant. One of the most common things that's said about 6+ is that there is more action. And the reason for this is pretty straightforward. We're much more likely to make a strong hand. The deck is stripped, players have better starting hands pre-flop, so it's obvious to see why a common thing that's said about 6+ Hold'em is that there is more action. Now notice that I have put more action potentially in brackets because I do think this idea of there being more action is a little bit of a misnomer. The reason is because the relative hand strength should change, so there shouldn't necessarily be more action in 6+ Hold'em than any other variant. It's simply the case that now if we flop something like top pair, top kicker, it's not going to be anywhere near as strong as it was in No Limit Hold'em and therefore should not generate the same amount of action. So when we say potentially there's more action, we're specifically talking about players who don't really understand the variant, who are going to proceed to play their whole cards exactly in the same way as they would in No Limit Hold'em without taking into account the adjusted relative hand strength. So the truth is that there shouldn't actually be more action in 6+ Hold'em because players should adjust based on the fact that things like 1 pair or 2 pair are nowhere near as strong as they are in No Limit Hold'em. But seeing as there are going to be many new players to the variant who don't really understand the nuances of how it works, then we may find that our strong hands get paid off a lot more frequently. We obviously need to come to grips with the different relative hand strengths. So some of the concepts that we've learned from No Limit Hold'em, we'll be able to translate these to 6+ Hold'em, but we have to keep in mind the differences. So we mentioned earlier how if we have something like a straight on a non-paired, non-flush board, then we have the nuts. Whereas we have to understand that in 6+ Hold'em, these kind of hands can carry a large amount of reverse implied odds. It's very easy for our opponent to have something like a straight beat because all they need to do is make a set and they have the effective nuts on that specific board texture. The same goes for things like flushes and full houses. So in No Limit Hold'em, if we have a flush, we pretty much have the nuts unless the board pairs. Then we have to start being very careful with our flush because if we're wrong, we can suffer from a large amount of reverse implied odds when our opponent makes a full house. It works in a very similar way for 6+ Hold'em, just in reverse. So if we have the top full house, we basically have the nuts unless a possible flush completes. And in that case, a hand can carry a large amount of reverse implied odds. We have to be very careful. We can't be super happy about getting all of the money in with a full house when there is a possible flush on the board. So we can see that many of the same concepts translate from one variant to the other, but simply involving different types of hands. So in one variant, a full house is pretty much the nuts, whereas in 6+, a flush is pretty much the nuts. Another difference that we will notice is that the odds and outs of our hands is not going to be the same as it is in No Limit Hold'em. So just to give a couple of examples of this, if we have something like a flush draw on the flop in No Limit Hold'em, we're going to have around 35% chance to make a hand by the river. If we have a flush draw in 6+ Hold'em, we now only have 5 outs to make our flush as opposed to 9 outs as a result of the stripped deck, and now we only have a 30% chance to make our flush by the river and a 15% chance going from the flop to the turn. Rather than multiplying our number of outs by 2 on each street, as we may have been taught to do, we are now going to multiply our outs by 3, because when we're on the flop, there are 31 remaining cards in the deck, so whatever the number of outs we have, we multiply it by 3 to give us a rough idea of the equity we have with that particular holding. So to give another example, in No Limit Hold'em, if we have something like an open-ended straight draw, we have 8 outs. Normally we'd multiply that by 4 to tell us that we have roughly 32% chance of hitting by the river. Whereas in 6+, we have a much greater chance of hitting by the river because we have 8 outs still, but there's only 31 remaining cards in the deck, which essentially means we now have close to 50% chance of being able to hit our OASD by the river. So this is obviously pretty huge compared to No Limit Hold'em. The main difference is that when we hit an OESD in No Limit Hold'em, it's very often going to be the nuts, whereas regardless of the board texture in 6+ Hold'em, when we hit our OESD, we still have to be somewhat careful about stacking off because maybe our opponent just flopped 3 of a kind with a pocket pair. One big difference is that we're going to see softer games. We often hear players talking about how No Limit Hold'em used to be 10 years ago. It was often referred to as the golden age, and there are probably over-exaggerated stories of how no one ever folded top pair, and you could literally just print money by playing tight, straightforward poker. Well, there's a possibility that the 6+ Hold'em games are exactly like that right about now, so maybe it's a good time, instead of grinding No Limit Hold'em the whole time, maybe it's a good idea to head on over to some of the 6+ Hold'em tables. They're available at William Hill. You can get a deal through PokerVIP, so maybe sign up for William Hill and have a look at some of the 6+ Hold'em tables. You may find that they are significantly more profitable than the games you're playing in right now. So why should I play 6+? Well, apart from the reasons that we've just discussed, one reason is that we can improve at poker faster in general by playing different variants, thinking about some of the poker concepts and how they translate from one variant to the other. This can often improve our overall poker IQ. So basically, even if we're mainly interested in playing No Limit Hold'em, having a short detour over on the 6+ Hold'em tables and seeing how those games play can sometimes help us to think more deeply about our No Limit Hold'em game, and we can actually improve a lot faster at No Limit Hold'em by playing the 6+ Hold'em games for a short period of time. And hey, we may even find that the 6+ games are super profitable and we don't actually want to switch back to No Limit Hold'em. This is our chance to get good at 6+ Hold'em before everyone else does. We know that No Limit Hold'em environment is somewhat tough these days compared to how it used to be, and we're not saying it's impossible to rise to the top. If you want to be the world's best No Limit Hold'em player, it's still possible to do that, but it's a lot harder than it used to be 10 years ago. Whereas 6+ Hold'em, there's a chance that if you grind 6+ Hold'em seriously for the next few months, you will actually probably be one of the best 6+ Hold'em players around. You're going to get ahead of the curve, you're going to be printing money before everyone else, and if you keep working hard on your game, you'll be able to just continue being among some of the best 6+ Hold'em players around. So this is your chance to jump on the 6+ Hold'em train before it's a little bit too late. We may find this is extremely profitable because we can be one of the better players in the variant that we have chosen. It's not 100% clear at this stage whether 6+ Hold'em is going to blow up. That's something we don't necessarily know the answer to. When 6+ Hold'em first appeared on the online scene, people were saying stuff like, this is going to appear on Stars within a few days and everyone's going to be playing 6+ Hold'em. We didn't quite see the response to 6+ Hold'em that some people maybe anticipated. But one thing to keep in mind is that 6+ Hold'em, even online, has really been in beta testing mode for a large period of time. In fact, it's only until recently been possible to play games which are 20 NL and lower, so it's not as if it would have attracted much of the player pool, because if we do play higher limits, then maybe it's not that appealing to go and play 4 NL 6+ Hold'em. But at the time of making this video, it's literally been less than 1 week since iPoker incorporated the 50 NL and 100 NL 6+ Hold'em tables. So this should obviously attract a larger amount of the users. More people are going to play 6+ Hold'em in the very near future, so it might be an excellent time to jump on the 6+ Hold'em train. So thanks very much for watching this video. If you have any comments, please post below the video, or any questions. I will try and get back to you as soon as possible. Now, in terms of 6+ Hold'em, we're going to have a few videos released in the not too distant future. We're going to have another video which is the top tips for how to beat 6+ Hold'em. We're also going to have a selection of about 4 live play videos where we actually hit the 6+ Hold'em tables. We try and put some basic strategy into practice. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the later 6+ Hold'em videos. As far as I know, there's nothing too much out there at the moment regarding 6+ Hold'em strategy, so this is going to be one of the main places where you can find this kind of content online. So hopefully I will catch you guys in the later videos. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Good luck at the 6+ Hold'em tables. This has been Weasel for PokerVIP.com in association with William Hill Poker.